I love biology, and I love this idea of getting biology to solve problems and kind of using biology as a building block. We started FREDsense out of some work that we were doing at the University of Calgary for the International Genetically Engineered Machines competition, which is essentially this big genetic engineering competition that groups from around the world compete in and try to use biology to do something interesting. And so that's what got us down this pathway of trying to design bacteria that could detect specific things and then be able to give us an electrochemical response. We did really well in the competition. We won a huge amount of awards, actually. And so then a couple of us kind of decided to spin that off into a company. The name FREDsense came from the competition, Field Ready Electrochemical Detector. A lot of people told us, you're not going to call it Fred, right? And we just kind of stuck, so we went with FREDsense. Water monitoring technologies have traditionally been lab-based. We still measure things in a lab. It takes a couple of weeks to get data back and makes it really hard for decision makers to be able to decide if something's safe, if a process is working, if a treatment technology is effective, because they just have this lack of data in any kind of timely fashion. So we essentially make field kits to do different measurements in water in the field. That's a little box that you can take cartridges and plug in and measure different things. And so our first commercial product is for trace arsenic analysis. So we sell cartridges that do different species of arsenic, and you can measure it in the field and plug it into the device. We also got some funding from a Japanese company to look at COVID. And so we figured out that we could kind of pivot the technology, adding some bits to it, get it to measure the SARS-CoV-2 RNA in a wastewater sample. Being able to detect on a population level is just a lot more efficient. So being able to look at a factory or a school or different areas of the city, what do COVID levels look like? It will be able to be used as a tool by governments, by health authorities, by different corporations or organizations to be able to identify where hotspot locations might be and be able to really tailor interventions towards those specific areas. And so we're really excited about this particular product, but also what it might mean for future products that we could develop, because there's a lot of things that you might be able to measure in the wastewater, and I think there's definitely becoming more appetite to be able to look at some of that stuff. The biology we do is actually really simple. Any molecular biologist would say, that's pretty straightforward. And similarly, the electrochemistry piece is actually quite straightforward too, but it's kind of bringing these bits together and kind of bringing the hardware and software around it, I think, that really makes us innovative. Some days I feel like I hate innovation. Like I'd rather, we just had something that worked and kind of, went with it. So I think it's a frustrating, journey. And I think it's really easy to say that you love innovation and you want to be innovative, but, in practice, it can be quite tricky sometimes and really frustrating to go from a, initial idea to something that's actually a product that you could make revenue from is quite a long time. SR&ED credits has been one area that's been really, really beneficial for us, just because we're doing so much active R&D that it's just a great way to recoup some of that expense. I did it myself 1 year and it was a terrible experience. I learned a lot. In the early days, we did everything. I cleaned the bathrooms and I swept the floors and did our SR&ED claims. And, eventually at some point you have to start figuring out, what are we good at? What are the things that we can really do and that we want to be spending our time on? And what are things that other groups can do for us? We started working with Copoint a couple years ago with things like SR&ED claims. It's all about the people that you're working with. When you're writing up some of this technical stuff, you're kind of talking to someone who's not a subject matter expert. They have a technical background, but you need them to get on board really quickly, learn fast, ask the right questions so they can do a good job. And we're really pleased with the experience. They made it a lot easier for us, felt like they really had things, handled. It was something that we didn't have to spend too much time on and could kind of just take a little bit of the, the thought out of it and kind of, offload it to someone else who we knew was going to have this covered and was going to do a good job for us, which allowed us to focus on, other areas of the business that we needed to.